Bluetooth devices where you do something on the device and it controls I mean, you do something on one and it affects the other directly. Like pause, answer.
Buds up.
What's that?
Our Mr. Server's been down for 6 months.
Buds up.
Buds
I
up.
didn't know that.
It's actually been
What's up, bud?
10 months. It was November.
I don't know. I don't remember.
It's August now.
N plus 1 month.
Okay, what's an RCS file?
RCS.
Or default, right? I'm sorry. Never mind.
RCS? Yeah. That's what I'm thinking.
There is no RCS in default.
Default.
I'm sorry?
What's default?
What are you referring to? The email I sent?
Yeah, there is no RC and ETSI default on SUSE.
If you read the entire paragraph, that'll explain it.
Read the message.
Oh, you want me to read the rest of it? Okay.
I wrote it for multi-distribution. You read the Debian part first.
Did you try that Linux Debian?
Oh yeah, I got it right here. No problem with the install. The login screen is really slow, so I changed that to GTK. But otherwise, really smooth installation.
But you didn't do the big installation. You
Yeah,
did the
I
easy
did.
one.
Okay.
Did you have to make a target?
I had to set the root partition. That's it.
No target. You say you used the wrong one. I wanted the other one. The one where you can put things on 2 hard drives if you want to.
Yeah. No, I just
Something on one and something on the other.
Yeah, I just did a simple.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
that's what I thought you were going to do. Because the other one is simple. There's nothing to that.
okay, then I guess I was confused about what you were trying to accomplish there.
I'm not saying it was the hard one. Well, not hard, it's just different. You have to make a target, I think.
Well, let's take a look here. I can do a quick reinstall. It's no problem. How we hello? Oh.
Need some foci there, John. Can you reach it?
Restart.
Need some foci.
So,
That's better.
Yeah.
okay.
I did it with the zoom, not the focus.
That's okay. The leaves look pretty.
Get more charge on the battery than we did in the car.
You don't have to worry about that. I forgot to let my phone charge.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about it.
This is different.
He left his phone on the charger.
No, I just changed the login manager. That's all.
Oh, okay.
Because it was stupidly slow, so I just changed the login manager. Actually, I didn't do anything else with it other than install it. I was going to spin up some other machines.
Mm-hmm. I've never seen any of this.
Well, it's just a different tool.
Oh.
Different manager.
What manager were you saying? Oh, is this,
Oh, you're going to do it on a virtual machine, I see. Looks like.
LMDE virtual machine?
Could be, yeah.
Or is LMDE the name of the virtual machine? Is this VirtualBox or something else?
Sorry?
Is this VirtualBox or something else?
This is KVM.
Oh.
But I left that thing with too many CPUs and too much memory.
What's been going on up north?
Same that? Yeah, a little bit early this year, right? Yeah. Okay. That town last year.
Okay.
Alright.
Yeah.
I should probably destroy that.
No, after I started moving to Ocala, I kind of lost that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like,
Yeah. And, no, it's on Nick, they, college days, got my senior year. Championship. Just like last night. And, yeah, the girls moved out a couple years back.
oh, did they?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they, sold that building back to a developer, land developer,
Mhm.
and, he came in and did a lot of improvements to it, and divided it up.
I think you want that advanced options course.
I'm sorry?
But you.
Didn't you want the advanced options?
Not for my talk, no.
Oh, okay.
No, you wanted to do something very custom, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. You didn't say that. You said that the normal install wasn't working for you. And so I was confused.
I didn't say that. Because, well, even Stan knew that.
Okay.
That
I
wasn't-
I didn't hear
It
it.
was,
so-
yeah.
Which version of Debian are we doing?
I'm gonna probably play with a bunch of them. Why, what do you want?
Just wondering what version, 7, or is there something newer than 7?
Well, I run SID on almost everything.
SID, which is, SID,
SID is the 14-year-old distribution.
oh,
It's testing, it's continuous rolling.
oh, okay.
Yeah, not for mortals.
Too much fun.
Hmm?
Too much fun for the rest of us.
Actually, I've never had a single crash from it, so.
How long has it been up continuously?
Well, I'll talk about that a little bit. The problem is my computers get older before the operating system does.
Yes.
Haven't been able to.
First world problems.
Okay.
Yeah. Like to get back. Like the same way. Start.
Hmm.
Yeah, we stopped by the new gateway today.
How about you?
Bob was just a friend of mine. He's the one who covered the vehicle.
New what?
Electronics store.
Have you
ever been there? Gateway Electronics, yeah. Well, I mean, they double the size of the store.
Huh?
They increase the size of the store.
Oh, no, I haven't been there since that.
It's mostly, used, used
Yeah.
equipment back there in the new part.
Actually, we went there with Buchek and we got a air hockey table. We were just screwing around at lunch and we went in there. He's just like, oh.
If I'd known that, I would have called him when we gave away the foosball table.
It was a little tabletop air hockey thing. It was kind of cute.
Yeah, well.
But the fun part is walking down the aisles and trying to figure out what this stuff is. I never knew what a monitor was until Gary explained it to me. You know, the monitors, specific frequency and code, like for a volunteer fire department or ambulance or
There's a
something
stop
like
right there. You know, because all along the left side of Britain was all like a strip mall.
that. I don't see anything on auto FSCT and Susie.
Pull back there.
On what?
Susan?
Kind of.
So Bud is Sousa?
Store.
Bud is Sousa?
Yeah.
Okay,
Otherwise,
I didn't know that.
Going to the front of the hardware.
Yeah.
Right to, you know, you have to go right to the front of the store.
Uh,
Because you know, they got stores on both
I assume
sides.
that if it's the first time it's been restarted in a while, we probably need to do some updates anyway.
And so you fight, you know, people always come through, you know, and so you gotta
Well,
stop.
I don't even know why we started. I mean, there were some power
They
hits.
stopped in front because they were trying to get you.
The whole thing went down about 3 months ago, but this has been down for, like last fall. And they're not been a power hit.
It's kind of real pain.
So I don't know is why I rebooted.
But there's a log.
Yeah, it's kinda hard to find it.
And I almost always.
hello.
How's it going?
All right. Yeah.
Popcorn.
There's popcorn.
Yeah, there's not, there was a lot of unpopped kernels.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
It's defective?
No, I don't know what, I've never seen this before. When it popped, it like just created this like cake in the kettle, and I just had to scrape it out with a knife. So, yeah. Yeah, but it's hot, it's ready.
First world.
What did pop is yummy.
So as we watch more people roll in here, does anyone have any chit chat? I know we were talking about the Chilean news today. I was messing with my friends in Chile. A senator or a parliament member, he put in a new rule of law to use open source software. And about a week later, another politician put in a new rule to nullify that.
I'm not impressed, it was a lot quicker than a week.
It was exactly a week.
Was it?
Yeah. But a week in their time is like, that's one mañana. So it was funny. I was messing with some people down there. What other things happened fun today? What was on Super Slash Dot? Anything good?
Let's
I
talk
just
about,
have to find it yesterday's news.
there you go. How about some kind of super conductor, Jerry? Yeah.
Do you want to see the Linus quote over the?
What temperature does it fry?
I don't know if we got any specific.
Let's see if we can find that.
No problem.
Ah! Did you guys see this? So Linus made a comment at the kernel summit about he still wants to see Linux on the desktop. And a lot of people have been having fun with it, finding older, younger pictures of Linus and putting the quote above it to show that he's been saying this for more than a decade.
Yeah, well over it.
More than a
The funny part is I've been using Linux on the desktop since 1997, so I think it's always been there. So I don't know what he's asking for exactly.
I think he wants to see it rule the desktop.
Yeah, I think that
The last log file is August 24th, 2013 on boot.
A year?
A year or two almost to the day.
Do a DFS-H. Let's see it.
DF-8?
Yeah.
What's that tell me?
It's human readable.
I know that. What are you looking for?
To see if how many of them are at 100%.
No?
Anyone else fix anything or break anything today that they'd like to share with the class?
I fixed Bud.
You fixed Bud?
Yeah.
Is turning it on really fixing it?
It was on. I had to,
You had to type in a password?
yeah. I had to come up with a root password. Because somebody told us how to fix Red Hat, but not SUSE.
Well, I can get the SUSE here in a couple minutes. They just have a different default file.
Where would that be?
On SUSE?
No, I mean, where would the information be about default files on SUSE?
Well, it would in the init for FS. Where would that be? Do you guys know where the FSCK default settings in SUSE are? You guys remember this stuff? Anybody?
So you're saying go into etc initd and grep for FSCK?
Yeah.
Okay, boot.root FSCK.
That sounds promising. Anything else? You're our news guy. You gotta do the news. I'm buying a little time so I don't have to talk for two and a half hours. Let's see. Anything else fun going
It
on?
says it's caramel corn, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, anyway, it smells so good.
Caramel corn.
Cool.
It's right stuck together.
It's supposed to stick together.
Right. He used to live right down the street from Cracker Jack, about a block away. So when I was a kid, we used to go there and get some of those.
Oh, there was a Linux Foundation offering Linux certification stuff. I did not read into this too deep, but it looks like they're all.
Too.
I guess there's some tiers going on, and I think I saw like 40 or 50 bucks or something like that.
I think it's free, or it was free for a while.
No, I think this is a different type of certification. I think this is much more generic.
I feel bad, I have two, I have two. Well, not the street, but as soon as I came through the airlock. All right. He said, what is this? Is the building on fire? No, that's popcorn. I said, play ball. First time this ever happened. The popcorn, it popped and just like made this cake in the kettle. It wouldn't come out. I had to scrape it out with a knife. What's cake? Is it butter? Is that what's sticking it together? It's like kettle corn. So kettle corn, yes. It's like a sugary. Yeah.
Well, there's some big news. On the 16th, Debian turned 21 years old.
21.
Yeah.
Isn't that hard to believe?
No.
I'm gonna start drinking. Well, I mean, I've had some time has been compressed and elongated for me in the last couple of years, and it's like, wow, man. You know, the millennium was just seemed like it was yesterday. No, it was 14 years ago. You know.
So I have Brandon, and I'm gonna try to help him get a P11 set up in his basement.
Oh, is that right?
So that makes me feel young.
Right, and Linux, or not Debian, you're saying it's 21, it's already an antique.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, no, I think the legal definition is 25 years, I'm not sure.
Well, I'm thinking a car at this point.
Is it 20?
It's a classic. Classic. But yeah, I mean, Linux itself, or Unix itself goes, I mean, Epic is 1970, right? But it wasn't really, I'm trying to remember when Ken Thompson sat down and wrote the thing.
Well, so parts of SynMail were dated till 1973. Oh, that's for a project.
I mean, of course, the first one was Emacs. Emacs was the birth of it all.
Minimax.
Hmm?
Minimax. I think Minimax was before you.
It may be, but I mean, yeah, it was Stallman and the Free Software Foundation and the Emacs editor, and then you're saying it had a predecessor, Minimax.
Stallman didn't come on until the early 80s.
Yeah, but for the Free Software Foundation? Oh, I'm sorry, that's right, that's Linux, that's the Free Software Foundation, right? Unix predates the open source. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get my Unix and Linux history mixed up.
Tico, it was originally called Tico.
Which one was it? The Emacs was called Tico. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So Debian turns 21. Red Hat is the other mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
When did it? What's its birthday?
There you go.
95 for Red Hat. Kind of in parallel with Windows 95.
Yeah.
Okay, Google, Red Hat.
Oh, okay. You know, this though, got installed. And then, the Red Hat Korea. That was moving fast.
Looks like first distribution was 94.
Of
Red Hat.
Red Hat, okay.
Yeah, and some of the disparity here is that the announce versus release public is usually like a month. So like Linux announced like in August, but first release of Linux was in September. Very much government same way and Red Hat, you know, they announced and then released and there was a window. It's kind of fuzzy on when things actually started.
So you're saying Red Hat is 94, Debian being 21 is what, 93?
Yeah. And whenever you get down into it, there's, you know.
So are you trying to tell me then that .devs are older than .rtm?
By far, RPM exists for Red Hat whenever it was pushed. So that was actually a later invention. Somebody's at the front door, somebody want to run and get that?
I think he's still up there.
He's doing a whole, unless he ran out himself and got locked out. Everybody use that one? Anybody want to sign this? We're all good? Well, if you guys want, I will go ahead and start blathering.
This is always very complex.
Who do you guys log in for your wireless? Right?
There's right here, it's guest, UMSL guest, right on the wall there. I was holding out for more people, and it looks like it was a good idea. So I am recording, so don't say anything nasty. Going up on YouTube Live so that people at home can watch. Usually my mom watches it, so that's cool. And I'm going to start talking here in a few minutes, unless you guys have something dire to talk about. Can we get it back here in the corner? Nothing? Crickets? Okay, I'm going to talk about Debian, the Universal Operating System. And this is my 33, 34-minute presentation I did this afternoon. So I'm going to talk about Debian. So Debian is a big project. You probably know a little bit about it, but I'm going to start with some of the more interesting things. So Debian has become a community, an organization, and a large project, and it's pretty much defined these days by a social contract and a lot of very simple policies. And the social contract is probably the easiest thing and most beautiful thing to look at. You know, we have a social contract that says it's with the free software community. It's saying that Debian will remain 100% free forever. So if they start going unfree, then they're probably going to shut down. That's what they're trying to say. We will give back to the free software community. So they are not going to hide any of their fixes for the kernel inside their organization. They're not going to keep things from going to the upstream, going to the actual origin developers. They will not hide problems. So in their past, they've had political and other arguments going on, and they make sure everything's very public. They don't try to hide things. They don't try to do offline discussions. They try to make sure everything's very public. And they've actually gotten through some pretty big problems just with the openness. So their priorities are the users and the free software. Question?
What's their stance on security issues that haven't been made public?
We'll get to that a little bit later, but and they do have a procedure, but it does have a really short window compared to other organizations. And I think that's what you're leading on to.
Number 5, Works that don't meet our guidelines, ... don't get included or marked as such.
Okay, so anyone can create a package and do lots of things, and they can put it into repositories like non-free or contributes, or there's other things. But there is a structure that allows non-free software, but it can never be called part of the core Debian. It can never be called part of this. So for example, in Drupal, they have this thing called Drupal core. No one ever gets to put anything in Drupal core that's not, completely perfect. Everything else has to be external. So they do protect their core very well to make sure that they don't get any surprise SEO lawsuits or Microsoft or somebody crawling up their proverbial back end. So if you want to, this stuff's very easy to read. It's all online. Sometimes it kind of makes you smile to read it. So Debian Free Software Guidelines, along the same line, they have these guidelines that define what type of software they are going to put into their system. So they have these little guidelines. So some of the guidelines are, for example, there has to be a free redistribution license. So there can't be a license that restricts redistribution. So Debian wants to make sure that they can distribute Debian, and that anyone that wants to make a sub-distribution can distribute that again. Source code. The source code has to be available, or the package is not going in. Okay? They're not gonna let you use it. If they don't see source code, they don't do binary drivers. If you try to do binary drivers, it's a pain in the butt. So if you have a really strange netbook that requires a binary driver for your wireless card, you're probably going to be unhappy for a few moments and then find out that there's an entire Debian non-free project where you can get that stuff really easily. Derived works. So they're really interested in making sure that there's no inheritance issues with software where it came from a proprietary piece of software. Somebody snuck out of a company and is trying to sneak into Debian. These are more social things, but they actually apply very well to the software. Is that even if somebody is a butthole, or if somebody is awesome, or if somebody is from a culture or race or whatever, that is no reason to discriminate against their software, what they are trying to do, and the fields and endeavors. So for example, if you have tons of scientists wanting to do scientist stuff, don't discriminate because they're not average Joe home user. So everybody's field and everybody's endeavor is considered absolutely equal. And that number 6 is actually quite hard. So you don't have the large commercial companies where, vendor X kind of pushes them in one direction. And that's one of the things, is they resist any push, any nudge. Everybody's equal, the playing field is equal. 7, every piece of software in Debian must have a license statement in the package, with it, documentation, whatever. None of this sneaking in of something. Okay, if there's no license, it literally can't go through their build process. So the license must not be special for Debian. It must be generic. So if somebody licenses something and they say, oh, for Debian they can do everything they want, but for Ubuntu, no. Debian says no. It has to be generic. It can't specify us. The license must not contaminate other software. So there are some licenses that restrict how things can be used, whether they can be used by commercial companies or not. And they also affect how other software plugs into them. So for example, Oracle suing the world for using Java APIs. Claiming an API is a what did they claim it was? Do you remember, Greg? When Oracle was trying to sue everybody, the API, it wasn't copyrighted, it was trademarked, or they used a really sleazy way around it.
Well, they did patent and copyright.
Or was it trade dress or something stupid? Okay. But there are some really sleazy ways that people can contaminate software. Okay, so they can say, here's our wonderful software, it's completely free, open, you can distribute it. But if you want to use the API to it, you got to pay us. So, example licenses they accept is the GPL, BSD, artistic licenses. Questions, comments, concerns? Nothing? Crickets?
So one thing interesting about Fields of Endeavor, there's a couple of people that try to say you can't use this for Axtable or things like that.
Yeah, that's been some of the very public battles of basically saying, I'm sorry, we can't limit this so companies can't use it. What's the point?
Right.
But yeah, there's
anyway.
There's the argument that a certain country can't use this because they are bad. It's like saying Cuba can't use this because we don't like Cuba. Debian is just basically saying, no, we aren't making any exceptions, period. And sometimes people try to sneak things in. So the Debian Code of Conduct, number one, be respectful, okay? Because these are people volunteering their time. Debian is a volunteer organization. It's like 1,030 developers that are volunteering their time. They must assume good faith at all times. Because of language barriers and translations, they do not assume the other person is being rude. They assume the translation is off. Okay? They be collaborative. They need to share their code, their intentions, everything in a very open forum and let everybody comment on it. And they must, number 4, try to be concise. So a lot of the times, including in their documentation, the RFCs and the other types of APIs that they're using, is very, very important to be concise about a product, not just saying, hey, use our library, it will work. They need to be concise and explain everything about the project, the product, and the code. Number 5, be open, which should be pretty clear by now. And number 6, in case of a problem, they don't really have an escalation system. They literally keep referring back to this code of contact. And if things get really bad, they just basically stop talking to the person. But they don't have a real escalation point where they say evil things or sue or anything like that. It's just real simple. Keep coming back to this code of conduct. So it's a very recursive cycle.
I think that number 4 means to keep it short.
Well, yes, but nobody reads 15-page emails. I mean, really.
Right.
Oh, you do, don't you?
I'm curious as to whether there have been any lawsuits.
Actually, yeah. I mean, every distribution's had some lawsuits. Most of them pretty much dismissed before the case. Typically you get like the EFF, or the EFF shows up and says we're interested in the party that was trying to sue. They're like, So there have been a lot of cases, and I think you could probably spend a couple of days reading through some of them.
You could search for them
Yeah.
online.
So like Evan Mogan, he did the first lawsuit about the GPL, and people were like, "Oh, you can't defend that," and he goes, "No, I can't," and he did. He successfully defended it, and the GPL was nailed down into case law as, you can't touch that. Okay, so the history. The announce was August the 16th, 1993, but the release was on September the 15th, 1993. So this is a little fun thing. This is like how Linus announced Linux, is he just basically said, I'm working on an operating system, who's interested? And about a month later, he had enough of it together to do a release. Same thing with Debian, is, hey, I'm going to work on this, and then about a month later, he had enough to do a release. Okay. The 73 languages thing, that's real. That's full support for almost all their applications in 73 languages. There's pretty much, that's one of the reasons that this is extremely popular in foreign countries and in Africa and developing nations is the support for languages that just simply are not supported by large distributions. One of the reasons Ubuntu and several other organizations use Debian as a base is that they can build off of that and work into markets that they normally can't. Debian was the first to do anycasting CDN global network for all of their mirrors. So you don't have to know where their mirror servers are. They have an automatic tool to get them to you. They actually have several tools at the point. But you can use like cdn.debian.net or http.debian.org, which should be an auto redirector. And what they do is they use anycasting DNS. How many of you guys are familiar with anycasting DNS? Raise your hands.
I'm sorry, what you said?
How many of you are familiar with anycasting DNS?
Paul Dixie didn't make it, I don't know.
Funny thing is that yes, he did actually have a part in that. So anycasting DNS, anycasting network is basically where you have 50 locations around the world. You all have them advertise your IP or your service. And so whenever somebody jumps on the internet, the wonderful internet tries to get the closest route it can, and guess what? It goes to that place. So what they do is they put DNS servers in those 50 places. And those DNS servers might have a list for all the repos that just happen to be geographically close, auto-selects them for you. So you never have to think, you just use it. This is how like services like Akamai and Dyn, this is how they make sure that their customers' websites are delivered the fastest anywhere in the world. So it's fun stuff.
Excuse me, Andrew. So what's anycasting have to do with it? You're talking about just talking about setting up, 20 DNS servers.
No, it's at the BGP route level. They actually advertise their network in. I don't have that. The FTP mirror site would have it, but they advertise their network on a BGP route in like every major city in the world.
Okay.
So whenever you jump on, the BGP route looks closest for the closest spot.
Okay.
Yes.
So did the streaming companies do that too, like
Yeah.
like YouTube and Netflix and whatever that?
Yeah. Well, see, and the thing is, they might just be loading static content or something. So, for example, like if you had a mirror for your software, your mirror might load up a list of your mirrors. So it might be a multi-step, but if you can get that first list to them very fast, it makes the entire experience fast. So if you try to go to some mirror in Tokyo to download the list of mirrors to find one closer to you, you're just speeding everything up. Debian is also multi-kernel at the moment. You can run 3 competing kernels. You can do your K-free BSD, you can do herd, and you can do Linux. So it's no longer a Linux distribution. And multi-platform, they have 13 official supported platforms. And they have 11 additional unofficials, but they're really well supported. So basically, we're talking about like ARM and i386 and x86-64,
Motorola 68K.
all kinds of stuff. IBM S390s, all kinds of fun stuff.
If the herd port is very usable yet.
It works, but I think it's pretty much
missing a lot.
i386 and x64 at the moment.
Right. Is it hard to use or missing a lot of features, do you know?
No, it just exposes POSIX interface and the rest of the packages install on top of it. So,
Try.
yeah. Well, I don't know where the hardware support would be though. That might be a concern.
So what's the difference between them? What's
Well,
the difference?
herd is the Stallman OS.
Okay.
Okay. FreeBSD, I'm assuming you know what that is. Yeah. So it's just basically during install, you can literally select your platform. You can select, you have your CPU platform, but you can also just basically pick your kernel. So for example, if you don't like IP tables and you want to use BSD for networking, you can do that.
So the herd is the kernel that GNU was working on before Linux came out,
Right.
and it's still not quite ready.
Well,
Microkernel?
Does that mean it's still 0 point?
I don't know.
no, I think it's like at version 4 or something, and it's it's been fighting uphill for an audience. I think somewhere the lug is advertised as 7 p.m.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
It used to be for 15 years, but then you changed it to 6:30. So
Did I?
It's always actually said doors open at 6:30.
right, doors open and it starts at 6.
That's in a manner of speaking. They
Oh, I'm sorry. I was jumping the gun then. Quite a few times. So yeah, as far as the multi-kernel stuff, this might be very fun for a Saturday afternoon lab project, but it's something fun to do. And then the multi-platform, you can get some really crazy systems. You can even, you can get like an old IBM mainframe and run it. So sometimes it's pretty fun. Okay, so I'm going to talk about some main points that I think are interesting, and then do some demos, and then we can chit chat and do some fun Q&A things. So Debian is easy to install. Okay, I got pretty much all of the major distributions, and Debian was the only one that I could keep hitting enter and it finished the installation.
Except for time zone. Except for time zone.
It auto defaults to the time zone. It defaults the time zone to Eastern.
Right.
But I could finish an install without typing anything in other than
no,
the root
typing
password.
it. You could up, down, arrow or something.
Yeah. So CentOS, for example, I got CentOS 7. How many of you guys have used CentOS 7? Okay, or CentOS 6, for example. Their installer is still extremely tedious. It's 2014, and I had to stop and read the entire screen because it was so tedious. I got the net install ISO for CentOS 7. It had no mirrors listed. I had to go search for a mirror and type it in manually. This is 2014, and this is still a problem. I did the Linux Mint Debian edition, and it actually made me set a mount point for the drive. It did not default it. I thought that was silly. I tried it like 4 or 5 times to make sure I wasn't doing something wrong, because that seemed like a mistake.
Actually, all Mint is like that. I think every Mint, because this is Mint Debian right here, but I've installed the other Mint 17 and it does the same thing. You have to specify when you're going through the partition.
Yeah.
Partition, you have to specify the mount.
Yeah, and I don't know if I would. That's the thing is, I was sitting there. I'm like, did I do something wrong? And it was.
Tell you don't have a mount point set.
What?
It does conveniently tell you you don't have one, but it doesn't tell you where you made your mistake.
Right.
It tells you you don't have one set.
Right, and what I was looking for is more of a default, kind of go, rock through it. Can you keep smashing enter and get it?
Yeah.
Can you keep smashing enter and get a prompt? That was kind of my thing. I did try some other enterprise solutions, and they weren't all horrible. It's just there was usually a catch. So that was just a little bit strange. And I'll do a demo to show you how awesome it can be. One of the talking points is that there are too many packages. Did I put it up here? Yeah. So in Debian, there are 48,600 plus packages.
That's 3 DVDs, right?
No. It's 3 Blu-rays, I think.
Oh, well, I downloaded 3 DVDs.
No, that's just the normal core.
Right.
I'm talking about the extended repos.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the normal core is 3 to 4 DVDs, depending on which density DVD they are, I guess. But it is literally a crazy number. And so sometimes it's too much for people. So they'll want to know how to, get an Office suite. And all of a sudden they'll come up and they'll have an option to install, 10 different solutions. And they actually kind of get pushed away. They kind of get disinterested because there's too much choice. And I think that's a problem with a lot of projects is with open source is that you have too many choices. But if you're using Microsoft throughout your enterprise, you have one choice, whatever they tell you. If you're using Oracle, you have one choice, get Larry Ellison more money. So I'm going to talk about upstream. How many of you guys are familiar with this concept of upstream versus downstream in software development? So in open source software, you've got that one guy that started writing it, or one girl that started writing it. And over time, it might become a big project, or it might just become like 2 people. But throughout the time, there's always a group of individuals in each distribution that are taking that software, packaging it up, and changing the defaults for their distribution. And so what they do is they create a model where the origin source code is the quote upstream. It's the lake at the top of the Mississippi. And that is what feeds everybody. So we're here in St. Louis. We would be downstream from several rivers and streams and so on and forth. So to us, in St. Louis, upstream would be pretty much everything up there. So it could be that, what's the name? Does anyone know the name of the lake at the top of the Mississippi? I forget it.
Itasca.
What?
Itasca.
Itasca?
Itasca.
Itasca, yeah. So the Itasca might be the origin project where two people got together and they really wanted to fix this problem, or they wanted to write a silly thing that made a Flappy Bird fly through some tunnels. So in Debian land, over the time, because they're a little bit, getting pretty old, pretty long in the tooth, over the time they have been packaging packages where the original developers don't have time to mess with it, but the people that package it at Debian become the upstream. So they become the source. So over time, developers have moved their code on purpose into the Debian as the upstream, the source, or the packagers at Debian are the only packagers that do any of the packaging for the head of the product. So let's just say you have some really old VT1000 terminal program, and the packagers at Debian are doing security and bug fixes for it. And throughout time, they become the upstream. So Debian and the, I probably mispronounced it, the aloth Debian.org, that's their head server, that's their source forge. That's where all these thousands of projects are. And what happens is you'll find out that Debian is the source for a lot of the programs you use every day. And your distribution that you might be using, if it's not Debian, they actually get it from Debian, maybe change some defaults and repackage it. Questions, comments, concerns? Okay. So strict policies. I don't think that's gonna. Let's see if we can get this. Yeah, let's exit down. So this is the Debian policy manual, and if you run an IT shop or enterprise or whatever, feel free to look through this and steal some ideas. So they cover an immensely crazy amount of items. Standards for package naming, standards for versioning, standards for dependency, virtual packages. So like if you have a package that links to another package and is completely virtual. Standards for everything. Time-stamping standards. Make sure everybody writes time in the exact same way. If you are ever concerned about some simple business or systems administration topic, it's a great resource. Documenting things, for example, like the fields in a in a package here, okay? So these are the things that get defined in a Debian package, for example. And some of these can actually help you remember that one thing you're forgetting on your project. You know, you're forgetting, you know, like the home page for something. You know, it's really interesting, but everything is listed here as a complete policy guide. You know, just every little tedious detail. So this is basically how to create a distribution manifesto. So it's like Linux from scratch, but much more streamlined and cleaned up. You know, file system hierarchy standards, users and group standards, just cron job file name standards. I think we should look at that one. I think they thought of everything. So these are the strict policies. They're not like harsh, like you must do blah blah blah. It's more of this is how we're all doing it. Try to keep the same. Try to keep up. Lightweight or heavyweight? How many of you guys mostly use Linux on the desktop? Anyone use Linux on the server? A few people here. Does anyone use Linux on like Raspberry Pi or some other microelectronics? Does anyone use Linux on a mainframe?
I tried it. It looks like Linux. It looks like Linux.
Right, but your job control is a little different. Okay, so Debian has one installer. Okay, Ubuntu's bad Ubuntu. Ubuntu has like 10 different installers depending on what you want to do. So they have an installer for desktop KDE. They have an installer for desktop GNOME or Unity or Wayland or whatever it is this month. They have an installer for 32-bit server. They have an installer for 64-bit server. So Debian has one installer per platform, and the x86 and the i386 are the same installer, so that's actually convenient. But if you have a platform, they have one installer that can install a desktop, a server, whatever you want. The minimum requirements for Debian, the last 3 releases, they require 64 megabytes of RAM. That's their minimum. That's less than a Raspberry Pi. Minimum requirements for a desktop system is 128 megabytes of RAM.
Yeah, I got servers been there for 10 years on 256 meg.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to see the bar so extremely low, because I'm looking at installations where a particular Fedora will not run unless it's got an immense amount of RAM. We have basically the range of lightweight from the Raspberry Pi, which is very popular, Raspbian, and the IBM mainframe, the S390 or something larger. We have supportable across more hardware than other distributions. So because it has the 13 primary hardware platforms and 11 additional, that means you can use the exact same command line tools to administer your server on an immense amount of hardware. So you don't have to have Z-Linux on your IBM mainframes and then Red Hat over here and then maybe something else proprietary elsewhere. And of course the KFreeBSD and herd if you like. So any questions, comments, concerns about that? Am I rock and rolling way too fast? Way too fast.
Just discussion question.
Mm-hmm.
I would never even think about there being different installers, because when you download an ISO to install it, it comes with the installer for that platform.
I was trying to point out that Ubuntu is pretty much the only one that does this.
But I mean, if I download x86-64 or x86,
Yeah.
or even ARM is pretty similar, if I remember correctly, from Raspbian.
Yeah.
But, are you saying those are the same installer or a different installer?
No, what I'm saying is that if you want to install a minimal server or a fully fledged desktop,
Yeah.
it's the exact same installer. So if you want to
I
install,
mean,
Ubuntu has a server
okay,
ISO.
okay, that's what you're saying. You're saying Ubuntu has 14 installers for the same platform.
Instead of
Yeah.
checkboxes to choose.
Instead of
which
checkboxes.
configuration.
Yeah,
choose what you- okay.
and that's why I was singling out Ubuntu there. I don't think I know of any other distributions that really kind of go down that hairy path.
Yeah, because I mean, I've been using SUSE for 10 years, and you check GNOME, KDE, or other if you want ICWM or something like that.
Exactly. So from your point of view, you have a customer coming to you wanting you to install Ubuntu, and you go and you look, and you're like, what the?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't.
No, I know.
Yeah,
but I mean,
I know what you're saying.
You have that moment when you're like, oh.
Wait, when they forked GNOME into Unity 6, 7 years ago, whatever, I said forget it. It's not worth dealing with.
So does anyone know any other Linux distributions that do the separate installer thing?
Well, I know that, I think Fedora is gonna move away from Anaconda as an installer.
Right. No other, nothing?
This is one of the advantages of having separate installers is that you can get that install down to a single DVD instead of having to have 3 DVDs when all I want to install
Well, yeah.
is
So
desktop.
I'm going to do some demo installs here, and I always use a net install myself, which is 183 megabytes, and I can install whatever I want.
But if you want to install where you don't have access to a network.
When you're installing Debian, the only way to do it, only way is to use that installer. Why would you bother doing it?
Well,
If you don't have
I think
network access.
Because the installer is exactly the same.
so. Having worked in the third world, I know that having those DVDs can make me able to do a lot of work very fast, and then I'm just getting the updates. Okay, but that's a very specific situation. If you're here in St. Louis and you're not using a net installer, you're probably not doing it right.
And you're gonna find that if you install a DVD you downloaded 6 months ago, you're gonna download as much as if you ran the net installer anyway.
Yeah.
So there's no advantage to having.
So, okay, since you want discussion topics, let me ask you that.
So yeah, that's something I forgot to mention and stress up on here, is that during a Debian install and some other distributions, but not Red Hat, for example, the updates are installed during the install. There's no install the old version and then update it. It searches for the most up-to-date version and installs it. So in Red Hat land and some other distributions, they will install whatever the installer dictates. Then they will ask you, do you want to get updates? And yeah.
So let me ask you, Debian takes 3 DVDs, I remember the last time I did it. How does SUSE put all their choices on one?
No, you can install an entire desktop system from the first DVD of Debian.
Okay.
The problem is that they, like, let's just say that you want to do Office Suites as your next priority, okay? And then the Office Suites on the second DVD, because they have so many variations. So what is it? There's a whole bunch of Office Suites,
Okay.
not just LibreOffice or OpenOffice. So because you have 48,000 options, you do chew up more disk.
So
But from the, yeah.
If you can get to the net, that's fine.
Mhm.
But I can think of at least one good reason why you can't get to the net, and I don't know how many other people out there where you're on a LAN. You're on a restricted network that's not connected to everybody else
Yeah.
for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
I can think of the big one, but there could be other reasons why we're in an isolated environment here, and we are not connected to the outside world, and we still want to install this thing.
Right, and we're not saying that that's a horrible idea. We're just saying is that if you have a 20 meg broadband internet connection at home that you're paying $30 a month for, it's kind of silly to be using the DVD the 3 or 4 DVDs to do the installation. Go ahead and just do the streaming net install. So I think that's kind of what I'm trying to say, is that the benefit of getting the most up-to-date, software, even if your installer ISO is 6 months old, you're getting those updates, and you're not installing something that's going to cause you pain.
But you mentioned the third world. What's the typical bandwidth in the third world?
So in Chile, it was about $120 a month for a 1 meg internet connection outside the country. And that was if you lived in a metropolitan area. If you live in the country, forget it.
So I mean, if you live in the country, bring your DVDs.
Oh, no, but $120 US is a lot of money. Okay, that's like...
There are certain specialized locations. One of which you can say is that if you're working in a high security environment, like the military, yeah, flat DVDs and anyway. You can't even take that yourself. So that's inside.
Oh, you can bring DVDs in because they're read only.
No, not
It
if they don't.
Depends on the.
You go to the defense factory in St. Louis, you can one lot bring those.
So one of the things with one of the things with that particular topic is it's really who is bringing you in, because I've done some work where everybody is going through strict security, but I need to get this thing fixed now, so gotta get the robot running. Zoom.
Yes,
So it just depends on who you know and what you're doing.
but I do agree, because where I live out there, I work where I used to live in Oakdale, and if you go 3 miles out of town, 56K or satellite, and 100 whatever.
So yeah, we're not claiming that everybody has to use the net installer. We're just trying to say that it's getting to that point in society where you can go to the public library with your laptop and do things. There are some other fun things you can do with that. Is you can do like proxies. So you can just basically set up a little proxy server, like on a laptop or something, and you can literally cache all of the packages, and then bring those back into your home or whatever, and just do all your updates on your other systems. So, for example, your aptitude or your apt or your RPM repositories, you might just have them cache all of the packages you install when you're on your laptop when you're traveling. You come home to your home that has really slow internet, and you set up basically a web share, and you set all your machines to install those updates. So there's actually really ingenious ways of getting around some of those troubles. So I'm going to talk about some fun things, happy things, things that make people laugh sometimes. So every release of Debian has been named after a Toy Story character. Okay. There's some discussion around the future as they slowly use up all the character names. But they are the entire organization is very intent on making sure that they keep a fun, light atmosphere with the naming. And they don't want to go down any, crazy animal tracks or something that gets them in a dead end. They want to keep things nice and fun. So in 10 years, they might pick another kids movie. I hope it's Despicable Me myself.
Do they not run into problems with the movie studio? Branding on that?
DreamWorks was one of the first commercial users of Debian, and they encouraged it.
And they're probably a serious sponsor of Debian.
So I've actually got friends at DreamWorks, and they could not have done a movie without Debian.
It's free advertising.
Mm-hmm.
Look up Carl Sagan versus Apple.
So again, the languages thing. This is huge. I don't know what Red Hat's number is, but let's just pretend it's less than half that. Another thing, Bruce Perrins was a Debian project leader that really kind of pushed forward a lot of the openness. And as happened, that was 97, 90, 98 coining of the term open source versus free software, which was pretty much pulled directly from a Debian guideline at the time. So the open source, the definition is literally references back to a Debian guideline. So if you search for open source definition, or maybe there's another word in there, you'll kind of see an interesting history about this. So it's the first formation of an open source project-based community, separate of maybe the Free Software Foundation, which was more of a foundation. It was a non-for-profit. So this is the first time that a self-assembling thing kind of happened at a massive scale as it is today. The project includes a book, and I brought the Dead Tree version. And the non-Dead Tree version is perfectly free to download, and you don't have to torrent it, unless you want it faster, I guess.
What's the name of the dead tree there?
This is the Debian Administration's Handbook. And pass it around if anyone would like to take a peek at it. It's very well written. It is now being translated in, I think they have it in 5 languages right now. So it's a book, part of the project, in 5 languages. And they're keeping it up to date constantly. Oh yeah, Google defaults to Debian on most of their systems. If you use Google Compute Engine, it defaults to Debian. I've got some friends, and I know that they use Debian for very particular purposes. It's kind of trusted for its security stance. I've worked with some financial organizations, Chicago Mercantile Exchange, very Debian-centric. So there's some fun things. And I'm chewing through my time really fast.
So let's pass around.
So reasons why you might want to switch to Debian from whatever you're using. You might switch for stability. How many of you guys have ever had a problem where Linux was working and then it wasn't working? Any experience? Nobody's ever broken something? Okay. So Debian has a different view on stability. Their idea with their heavy testing on all these platforms is that no one should be able to discover a system crashing. Nothing should happen that should bring the system to a halt or cause a service to fail other than your own configuration. So they have a lot of testing, and that's one of the benefits is that the entire open source software community benefits from their testing because they're upstream. So whenever Ubuntu grabs these packages, they don't have to worry about a mysterious source. They can go through the Debian ALOth server, see the test, see the history, look at the bug reports, look at the resolutions, see the people. Another good point why you might switch to Debian is hardware support. Hardware support is fantastic, unless there's a binary firmware. That's a gray area. They do not depreciate things as fast as other distributions do. So like some distributions might depreciate the Sound Blaster 128 or whatever it was. Debian chooses not to depreciate some of these things. Platform support. So for example, if you use Raspberry Pi, you probably use Raspberry, which is Debian. Package selection. That might be a reason to switch to it if there's a package that is extremely well supported on Debian but is not on your distribution of choice, or maybe you like how Debian compiles things better. So, for example, in Debian Squeeze, which is the equivalent to Red Hat Enterprise Linux 5, the Apache was compiled differently than Red Hat would compile it. So the Debian version would allow you to change the document root as a configuration setting, and Red Hat would not. They wanted you to recompile if you want to change document root. And this would cause problems with web hosting companies and people that needed to host immense amount of websites. So sometimes a package can be identical from distribution to distribution, but that distribution takes a different stance on how it's configured, compiled, or other. So package selection. The cool kids use Debian. I use Debian. I've used Debian since 2001. Mandriva before that.
I'm right there with you. We're
Huh?
around the same time. Same path.
Slackware before that.
I'm with you. I used Red Hat somewhere in between there. used Red Hat for a while.
Well, only if they ask me to.
I used Hybridize back
In
when
the
Red
Red
Hat.
And then rolling releases, okay, this is for Stan, strictly for Stan. So Debian kind of has this policy that from about 2002 or so, that all of their distribution releases, you should be able to simply upgrade from the version you're running to the new version with just one command. So they allow you to roll forward through time without having to pull out an installation disk and reinstall anything. So I've got my laptop before this one, I ran it for 5 years with never reinstalling anything and continuously updating it. And the only reason I'm not using it is because it's old. My hardware gets older faster. You know, my hardware gets really old faster than, you know, any concern or caveat that would make me want to reinstall comes along. There's got to be some questions and comments on that.
Yeah, I would say there was a break. One, when it went from 5 to 6.
I'm sorry?
When they went from 5 to 6, there was a breakage.
Yeah.
Because that's when they went from the IDE legacy support, went from HDA notation for the drives to SDA.
Right, but you still could do an in-memory upgrade.
Yeah.
And
Problematic to anything other than basic drives.
but most of us were using SCSI back then, so you know.
Your SCSI was already SDA, so it wasn't an issue. So if you were running a home system or your own server with a wireless IDE system,
That's for mortals.
well, every laptop back then had IDE drive.
Yeah, I think I might have had problems around
That was about 06. Okay.
I'm
Say your laptop was out a couple years.
yeah, I'm just being silly.
Yeah, that was the only break I know of.
Yeah, there's going to be situations where, for example, like your hardware has a particular firmware that only works for this particular version of the kernel. There's going to be those catch points, and like you say, like a rewrite of the IDE interface, which was started with a UHCI or something.
Yeah.
That rewrite, yeah. There's
HCI went in BIOS.
okay. So why might you not switch to Debian? Okay. So they have a long release cycle. They have a 24-month release cycle for their stable systems. So when they say 24 months, they mean that it's literally like 1 year of development, a freeze, 1 year of testing, a release. Okay. They take testing serious. So they will literally not release unless it's past everything. And they've delayed almost every single release because they weren't 100% happy with it. So it's actually about 26 months. And some vendors don't really support Debian for their product, and this might actually be a reverse. So some vendors might only support Debian and not support Red Hat. So I had to deal with cPanel, which is a web hosting platform, and they would only support Red Hat. And so at that point, you're just kind of backed into a corner, and you know your customer wants cPanel, and they just think it works on all Linux, and you're just sitting there like, oh. So that's a reason why you might not switch to Debian.
Back to why you would switch. I find the Debian-specific management tools a lot easier to work with. AppKit is easier than Yum for the most part. Yum sometimes confuses me. Although Deepak, all the different things surrounding apps confuse me sometimes.
I'll write something on the wall.
It's the way it manages things like Apache websites and plugins.
Yeah.
It's the way it starts and stops services. It's the way that I don't have to answer GUI questions if I don't want to, or text user interface questions. That I can kind of script everything really easily. I started scripting the installation too, and that's probably about equivalent to Red Hat.
Well, it's different than Red Hat because of the basic drop down to command line scripting anywhere you want. So the Anaconda system really doesn't support that. It supports pre and post. But in the middle of a dev, it's a silly name for that, pre-seed. In the middle of a pre-seed, you can literally run a Python program, which is crazy. Any other comments on why you might switch or not switch distribution? Why has anyone here switched to a different distribution?
Why?
Yeah.
Because stable is equivalent to old. You could write that in the form of open paren, stable equal old, close paren.
Yeah. So I run SID, and I've run SID for forever, and I just continuously keep updating it, and so and in Debian language, SID equals testing. So in the first Toy Story, the SID is, which character is SID? Does anyone remember?
He's the kid next door.
Yeah, so he's like the destructor of things, right?
So that's an appropriate name for Debian unstable.
Yeah. What?
He's Debian unstable, right? And that's
unstable
is the perfect name.
Always
for
breaking things.
Yes.
Unstable, testing, dev, whatever they want to call it, it's just SID. And whether or not SID the character is very good, SID the testing repo that you can literally continually work off of for decades at a time is very stable. I use it on everything. I have some awesome DNS servers in a particular place that have been running SID for a really long time with a little cron job that automatically updates them. Never fails. Things can work out pretty well. You don't have to be scared about the 2-year release cycle, because typically after one release, within about 12 months or so, the installer for the next one is ready. So you can actually just start playing with it, and it's pretty fun and stable.
So for servers, I like that stability in long term. I don't have to mess with it very often. I usually just build a new server when there's a new release. And also the surface area of it installs in less than like 100 megabytes disk space, and hardly anything's running. I can turn off the 2 or 3 things that are running that I don't want to. And security-wise, that's a very small attack surface.
I was being extremely evil one day, and I did a Debian server installation that was 64 megabytes. Okay? And what I actually did is I installed it, and I uninstalled apt and apt-get. So I basically made it so it could never install any other packages. But I had running system with a whole bunch of tools, really, really tiny. Standard Red Hat base install, which is a dangerous and slippery slope, because there's another group list which is called Core. Is that right? Is Core? Yeah, Core is the base, I believe. So base is for a workstation, and that's what most people install on their server without thinking. So they get X Windows and mice drivers and all kinds of things on their server. So a base install of Red Hat Enterprise Linux is typically 1.2 gigabytes. And it is really kind of hard to pare that down to the point where you're not chewing up so much space. And if you can create a 300 or 400 megabyte server that's doing one particular thing very well, then it's much easier to back up. It's much easier to slide across to another environment and start up. It's just much easier to work with.
That's why some distros have a server-only install as an option. That's why some distros have server-only install as the primary option.
Right, but even Ubuntu server install is huge.
I'm not talking about Ubuntu. That's crap. I'm talking about SUSE.
Okay.
300 meg. Or less. Or if you want a small one, go BSD. A regular BSD.
Okay. So Don and I had a miscommunication about Linux Mint. He said he had a problem with the installer. And
I'd like
that's
to comment about
Which
that.
Don?
I Googled that.
that Don.
I Googled that custom install problem with Mint Debian.
Mm-hmm.
My God, the hits I found, other people were throwing their arms up too about that.
So let's just do a quick Debian install here, just to show you what's going on.
What are you using for your virtualization? Using LXC?
No, KVM.
What's that?
KVM.
Okay.
I've got enough cores. So I'm just going to do a simple basic install here. I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to hit enter.
Can you enlarge the window?
Let's see here. Is that better?
That's
A little bit.
Barely.
What's that one at the top?
Albania.
Albania.
How many of you guys have used a net install on any distribution before? About most of you? 3/4? Okay. There is a pretty GUI install, but I don't like it. You're seeing the text-based version.
What were the first two questions before we got to language?
There, the 3 questions were install versus other tasks, keyboard and language.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it the host name of Debian there. What did I hit?
That one's domain.
Domain name. Just hit enter. Root password.
None.
Give it a real root password. Full name for new user. Ah! I can't get past that one. Apparently, I was wrong.
You just got a dyslexic keyboard.
Hmm?
You got a dyslexic keyboard.
Root user should not have an empty password. How do I make a password?
Sorry?
It says,
You put in a password for root. It's
Yeah,
not-
I tried to do something I should not have
Yeah,
done.
it forces you to create a user. In SUSE, you can create a user and make him a system account.
Right. Most of them you can. I would say it's one disadvantage is it doesn't automatically add the user you create during the install through sudos. So you have to go manually add that. I mean, it's equivalent little thing. You can always SU super user, but it doesn't automatically by default allow you to just do sudo. But it's
So why would you? The first user on machine isn't necessarily admin.
It's not, but if you're the person installing it, you probably are. But yeah, I agree.
If you're the person installing it, do SU minus and do it.
I'm just going to hit enter.
Eastern time.
Well, I don't, yeah.
Okay.
Actually, some of my systems are still in Eastern. So I'm just going to hit enter. I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to hit enter.
It erases everything on the disk.
So when you hit
Not
all
yet.
those enters,
Not
what
yet.
is it?
No.
That's just
Now it will.
partition. Partition right now.
Where is it picking its disk space from?
I just told it to use the whole thing.
The whole thing in the virtual partition.
Yeah.
Now, this-
So when it comes to virtualization, so if you have a large virtualization or you have a SAN and you're mounting block devices over your SAN, you don't want a lot of small partitions. You actually want one partition that's one block device that gets one I/O call.
Right. Is it going to do two? Is it one swap as a separate partition, or is it swap to a file?
If you so in Debian and some other distributions, if you do give it more than 4 gig of RAM, it will not do a swap anymore. So you're going to see some systems that are basically, because what was happening is they were always doing the swap the same size as the RAM, but then people started building 96 gigabyte of RAM on a server, and that got kind of stupid really fast. So we're getting the super kernel there. And we're basically installing everything over the network at the moment. So This is all using the wonderful Wi-Fi provided to us by HomeSol.
They upgraded the base Wi-Fi with all the other additions?
With what?
With all the new stuff, have they upgraded the guest Wi-Fi too?
No.
It seems a lot faster for some reason.
So there's a ton of mirrors, and one of the things is that it defaults you to the root for your. It basically uses the localization that you started with the country, and it will default you. So I'm just going to hit enter for giggles here. No proxy. And where are we at here?
I don't know, we were at 3 of 4, now we're at 3 of 3.
Well, it's actually
Oh, about 12.
it's actually doing a pretty big step, and it's getting a bunch of things at once. So apt-get and a lot of these tools, and even the some of the Red Hat stuff is starting to do this now, is that they'll literally run as many threads as they can to download things, depending on how you configure them. It's kind of convenient. Sometimes it's kind of scary.
It is bad that it keeps getting 100% and doing a new thing. I don't even remember how many 100% it needs to get to.
Well, if you use the GUI, it does show you each thing.
They're all.
It is streaming thing. Yeah. So I've done actually live installs here before, right before demonstrations, because I procrastinate as long as I possibly can.
Yeah, I thought you were going to put the repository on a separate VM and then do your install, your net install.
Oh, no. Reality's reality. I want you guys to know it works. In some environments, when I actually had my own localized mirrors, the installs were amazingly fast. I know that in some environments I would work, there would be a dedicated mirror on site, and it would go through the security validation system so that you didn't have to go out to the crazy world, and you can install massive servers in no time, and it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, well, what blew me away is I'm building a new primary workstation. It's 6 core with 16 gig of RAM, and I use some Barracuda drives in. Man, on a 16 meg internet connection, that you can hardly. I mean, the progress bars move faster than you can watch. I installed 500 packages on it in like 10 minutes yesterday.
Yeah.
I was trying to install the MP4 codecs, and I removed GStreamer by mistake.
So I am not going to do the package survey. The popularity contest is a system that helps them understand which packages are being installed and which are not being installed, so they can figure out if they need to keep packages. You might not want to use this, or maybe you might want to use this. So for example, there's some package that they find that nobody is installing. They might bring it up for review on if we need to even keep this. Task selection. So I'm going to make this fast. So in different distributions, they have different methods of task selection, and all it is basically what type of installation do you want? Do you want a desktop system so you get all that stuff, or a DNS server, or a web server? Do you just need that stuff? And task selection, actually, I wrote it on the board because I'm going to talk about it as a demo topic here in a moment. So we hit the old enter button here. So I had to type the root password and I had to create a user. And I unselected some stuff just for speed. Installation's complete. And give me a prompt. So task selection is just like an in-person interface. And at any point, you can come in and say, I want to turn this server to have an SSH server also. Hit the OK, and it automatically takes it to that level. Okay, you can create your own custom task levels for your business. And you can quite literally, define what things should be and should not be. This may not be a feature for everybody, but it's kind of handy sometimes.
I blinked. When it finished, did it log you in as root?
I logged in.
No,
as
you're
root.
not. I just didn't see. Like I said, I blinked. I didn't see you type in the root password.
Yeah, no, I'm awesome. I'm sorry.
Need a plaster cloth on this.
Okay, so we've got our super server here, and let's see what we got. So it looks like we have 652 megabyte install here, and I did that from a 183 megabyte install disk. So there we go. Let's see. So I just did task selection. What other Debian specific questions might somebody have before I do the Linux Mint thing again?
Aptitude installed by default? I know apt-get did, I didn't know if aptitude did.
Yep.
That's the recommended tool to use now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Nobody uses it.
So in Red Hat, they have the RPM command. And then Debian, they have the apt-get command.
Right.
And what both of these commands really lack is the ability to install an infinite number of repos. So in Red Hat land, you use the Yum tool, which is the Yellow Dog Update Manager, which basically will allow you to hit an unlimited number of repositories. The original RPM could not really do that. And the same thing with apt-get. It's the original command, and it was never really built for that type of scale, and that's where aptitude has come in, because it handles dependency management to an amazing level.
But it doesn't let you search. Does it let you search?
What do you want?
Okay. I mean, one of them, I guess apt-get doesn't have the search.
Can you do a cache search?
Yeah, no,
Very good.
apt-get can do the search. The difference is that just like RPM, it can do a search, but it can only really do a search on one repository.
Okay.
It just can't hit that scale. So, and Debian defaults to a yes. So if you just hit enter, it automatically installs. Red Hat defaults to a no. That's a preference issue, but it's mighty convenient for lazy people like myself.
Sometimes it'll ask you a question, though. Sometimes it'll ask you a question. Yes, hit yes. Unless you pass the -y option.
So just like in Red Hat land and SUSE and others,
No. SUSE doesn't. I mean, it's Zipper LR. And let you manage all your repos with Zipper. You don't have to have the text file.
Ooh, nice.
calm down. You can do this all from the command line, but I want to talk about something different, something separate. Okay, so in most distributions, including SUSE, they have different repositories. So they might have the same base URL. So it might be SUSE.org or SUSE.com. But they will have multiple sources within there. Okay? So it might be main, it might be the root or config. It might be contrib. Contrib is a very popular one. Pac-Man. Non-free.
Non-OSS.
And here's a situation where you can put in, other sources. So for example, here we have the security sources, but they are only listed as main operating system updates or the main catalog. Okay? And volatile, okay? And this is a situation where there's a backport coming backwards. Okay? So you have this is Debian Wheezy, this is not SID, so this is very sane and easy to look at. But you may have a backport coming that is considered volatile because it hasn't gone through the 2-year cycle, but it fixes some bug or some problem that they really have to get pushed back.
A lot of those are more like data for spam detection.
Clam AV and stuff like that, yeah.
Probably time zone stuff, I would guess.
Yeah, so like, that's really that volatile topic there, is that this stuff is going to be updated often, and it's going to contain information that hasn't gone through that long, strenuous process.
It's actually a lot cleaner in SUSE.
Sorry?
The whole process is a lot cleaner in SUSE. You've got a repos.d directory, each repository is a separate file, and the properties of the repository are in the file.
Yeah, it can be done the same.
It's got sources.d now.
Yeah, it does all of the same.
Sources.d now too.
That's not the topic I'm going at here. I'm trying to say is that the management of, you can add space and a name 50 times, and your operating system, including SUSE, can search multiple repositories for one package.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying SUSE can't search for packages?
Yeah, but they're not.
That's what I'm talking about.
But you don't have them in a text file. Each one is a separate file.
It's not what I'm trying to talk about.
Okay.
I'm trying to say is that the tool can search multiple locations for any type of package. Okay? So I'm not talking about SUSE or Debian or Red Hat being better. I'm saying the tools now allow multiple repositories, which they didn't 5-10 years ago.
I've never seen that.
Okay.
I've never had to deal with it.
Sounds like a duel's in order.
Huh?
We've been doing that for years.
A duel's in order. Let's go out to the department.
No, I'm talking about apples. I'm talking about oranges, and we're
Faces, throw your laptops.
Yeah.
no, you do not want me to throw my laptop at you.
It's him you're doing, not me.
Oh, no, it's a ThinkPad. It's bulletproof. Quite literally.
Apple's iMate was lethal.
I'm sorry?
Apple's iMate was lethal.
Some of them were pretty bad. Any other questions here before I jump off and do some other stuff? Does anyone have any Debian questions that came here tonight to get answered?
Just to kind of do real quick, how would you rate Stable's LXC Docker support? The level that it's at.
So like Wheezy?
Yeah.
Yeah, Wheezy's pretty good.
Pretty darn good for LXC.
No, it's really good. The differences are going to be the host OS. So in SID, we're all system D. We're moving to network D. So the host system is going to become more awesome as you go into Jessie, which is coming out into February-ish. But as far as which one's better for Docker, yeah, it's really kind of a wash. I mean, it's not like you're going to gain a ton. If you go to SID, you could probably use some of the updated software-defined networking tools to bring in network configurations into your Docker environment. So, for example, in Docker, you can have scripts to affect a isolated network port for that container. Okay. That might be something that you could gain by going to SID or something else that's got like a 3.10 or better kernel. So this is stable. This is 3.2. Yeah, this is 3.2 is stable. Yeah, no, Red Hat 7 just finally got into the 3 range. So that's kind of fun.
So that's 7, he's only did 3.2?
Sorry?
You did 7, right?
That's this virtual machine, which has got Debian stable on it.
Okay.
Not my system here. What do I have? I've got 3.14 on my system. 3.14.15. Ugh.
There's a big gap.
I'm sorry?
There's a big gap.
24-month gap, 26 and a half or something. But yeah, back to your Docker topic. As long as you're I think they said that there was a 3.3 kernel you shouldn't use with Docker, and there was another one you shouldn't use.
Yeah, there's no trouble with the performance. It really was going to be bigger than networking. It's always been an issue with the IF interfaces being renamed, and that's not consistent with current kernels, or it's still using the old E0 naming versus hardware naming.
But yeah, I mean, SID is very stable. Freeze is next month. And at freeze, it's going to be more stable than most other operating systems. So,
Since you're working with SID, you might have noticed how do you feel about the fact that they're using pretty old versions like ButterFS and XFS stable?
so when it comes to like XFS, I would always compile myself for that type of a tool. So for Gluster, I would compile myself because I would want to tweak things for the environment. And I think that most of the people that are hitting this for, HPC, high performance computing, or some other environment, when they're in that range, they really should be understanding that install a lot better. So, I mean, that's a personal concept, but as far as doing it for business, many times I would compile for some speed or some other attribute. So, any other fun questions? You got a sheet in front of you, so.
I was trying to one of the things that I actually wrote down was one of my big issues with the installer is that relatively coarse task selector at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of something more updated, where when you select a server install, it asks you which server you want to install, as opposed to we're going to give you one, so then you can take it out and mention X.
I could probably
really want.
So have you used the complete X-Window GUI installer from Debian?
I haven't for a couple of years, but I have.
It's pretty fine-grained. You go into per package and all that stuff. I usually go base and install what I want. Or I have something like Ansible kick in and just throw my stuff on there I want.
I would say that is one of the advantages of the distributions that use the separate installer for specific applications. There's a real need for it, like the Linux server. Better or worse, at least it does tweak things for a server load, as opposed to giving you a desktop kernel with the Apache writing on top. Like that.
Well, in Debian parlance, there's no difference in between a desktop kernel and a server kernel.
You probably go and tweak some of the timing settings.
No.
Debian, they don't. Others servers.
Yeah.
Tick, 1,000 hertz versus 250 hertz.
Hertz. It's tickless timer since 2.6.19.
It's tickless, except unless there's some applications like Apache 3.4 won't yield all consistently, and they have to force it. I don't know the details. That's beyond. It's starting to get beyond me. Yeah, it's getting way beyond. That's way beyond me. And just know that there are some issues that other more up to date have. But they all come back to.
Again, on that topic, though, is that if you have a situation where you're back to a tick timer on your application.
There's always the default, the tick code is still there as a fallback when they have to force preempt. It's still there.
Yeah. So some of the situations, one of the things is virtualization with blooming and overcommitting, is that you do work into environments where the systems will fall back. Just like what you're saying, they'll fall back to a tick timer. And with ballooning is basically virtualization. If you overcommit the amount of memory you have, you tell every server it's going to get 4 gig and you don't have that much RAM. What happens is it does ballooning. It tries to make everything happy. But at some point, you can really mess up and overcommit and use all of that RAM and cause your systems to start crashing. And ballooning is meant to stop that from happening. And what ballooning does is it literally says, whoa. It literally just stops applications from getting more RAM. And it can be dangerous and beautiful at the exact same time.
That's wavy. Okay.
Any other questions, or should I play with Linux Mint here for Super Don?
Actually, on the subject of Linux Mint, I have, on this ThinkPad, I have I have Linux Mint Debian Edition, and I got it off of this. I subscribed to this magazine, and then I bought it at the store, so when they send me the subscription copy, that's this.
Mm-hmm.
So if anyone wants it, what this is.
Is that Linux format?
Yes, it's Mint. It says Mint 16, but it's Mint Debian Edition, and it has 10 different desktops.
Mm-hmm.
So when you install it, you have a little box on the upper corner. You just pick your desktop. They've got Cinnamon, they've got Enlightenment, they've got all kinds of stuff.
And then you'll come and give a presentation on all those different desktops.
Yeah, that's a good stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway,
If
this is
an extra one from me, so if anyone wants it,
Okay.
who is going to do.
So which desktop did you pick?
Well, right now it's got Cinnamon on it, but that's only because I'm used to it, and I'm going to experiment later with this.
Now, when you make that selection of
Did I
desktop,
make a quick copy?
is that which one gets installed, or do they
No.
all get installed?
They're all
Which
installed.
one you
They're all
want to run?
installed. Yeah, there's a DVD
No,
in
yeah.
there.
So I want to.
I want to make a copy.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, just make a copy of the DVD.
Yeah.
Oh, the DVD. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm
Or you
going
could copy the whole magazine.
Does it have a network installer?
But anyway, it has, when you do the Mint install, it gives you all the desktops, and you're on the login screen, you have a choice of which desktop you want. So it's pretty much all the applications are the same, all the software is the same. It's just presented different. So if you want to experiment with desktops and try different ones, that is ideal.
And which one did you say you're using right now?
Right now, it's Cinnamon, which is the.
How do you spell that, Cinnamon?
Called, it's like the
C-I-N-N,
Yeah.
okay. Not S-Y-N.
No. But there's all kinds of, it's pretty cool.
Can I ask a dumb question?
There are no dumb questions.
Oh,
The one you don't
dumb,
ask.
only dumb answers.
Well, there's the dumb question is the one you didn't have.
You know, there's so many versions of Linux and so forth, and is Mint the Debian desktop version focused, or what is?
Mint is meant for desktop users, yes. That's the entire focus of the entire distribution.
It's for, okay, so it's Debian's, and somebody said I'm going to use Debian as a base, and then I'm going to use the Mint release just
Well,
for
there's
desktop.
there's basically two Mints. There's one Mint that's based on Ubuntu, and then they came out with, which is currently a rolling release, which is based on Debian,
Okay.
which is what this is and what the so you actually have the Debian repositories and not the Ubuntu.
Okay.
That's the main difference. Plus, there's some difference in the packages, but generally, when it boots up, if it's on Cinnamon or Mate, something that Mint supports, it looks exactly the same. It just has more stuff. It just has more stuff under the hood. And with this particular DVD, you've got 10 different desktops to pick when you boot. They're all there. All you do
Well, I guess it come with a, as a standard default set of desktop tools like email reader.
Oh, yeah, it comes with everything. It comes with pretty much everything, pretty much on one, what they consider to be the best and the most usable application.
Okay.
And they pretty much integrated them all.
Okay.
So if you know anything at all about computers, if you use Windows or something like that, you can pick that up very easily.
Okay, so super Don, where were you at with this here? You wanted to do edit partitions?
Yeah, but I wanted to edit it on more than one hard drive.
Okay.
There you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to use a few parts of it.
Yeah. So
Yeah, but you can't install them there. You can. Go ahead.
So you're trying to install like Linux Mint on one hard drive and then do something else on another hard drive?
No, I want Linux Mint on the SDA.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, one of those.
Mm-hmm.
And I want my data on SDB1,
Okay.
and I want my backup on SDB2.
Okay. Okay. So for example, you
Because
might.
I take the data and I link it into these different.
So you
things
might
that I do.
you might create a partition that is.
I'm always curious about people's partitioning schemes. You use the word backup. What are you going to use that? When you use that word backup, what do you mean by it?
So back up my files,
So
data files.
Yeah, and you just copy them over there, or do you
No,
tar
I-
them up and send them over there, or what?
No, so basically it's like a data drive. So for example, in Microsoft Windows World, they usually do a D: or a data partition. Okay, and basically what they're saying is that the OS can go bye-bye, but my home directory and everything is still
No,
there.
he's got a data partition, and he's got a backup partition. I want to know what's on the backup partition.
Okay.
Well, it'll have the backup from tonight at 12 o'clock. It'll go on, or 10 o'clock, I guess I do it. And then tomorrow, it'll have that same thing, but with a different date on it.
Okay. And what?
And the next day, and so on.
So what are you using for your backup? What's doing the backups?
Or Snapchat. Pardon?
RSync, using
No, I
RSync.
use InSync. InSync mainly. RSync? RSync, yeah, what it is. Use RSync on it, and
Therefore, you feel like your backup partition needs to be what size relative to your data partition?
it's about 10 times bigger. And the data partition is pretty good size. I got about 100 megs, or is it gigs?
Let's call it
gigs.
gigs.
Yeah, 10 gigs for my data files. And then I have the rest of them, 400 gigs as backup.
You say you're using two different disk drives. You got data on one.
No, I've
physical
got it.
drive.
I got it on.
We
it's
have
on-
the tools
it's on
and
a-
the technology.
It's on a different drive. But then I also back it up again over to my wife's computer, just to be on the safe side. And then besides that, I back it up on these.
And I'd love to ask questions. And what are you afraid to lose? In all of that backup, what is your valuable that you can't, I don't want to lose this?
Finances.
Huh?
Finances.
Finances. Okay. Not your wife's photos, not your.
Well, I've got that.
Yeah, that too.
Her photos.
But you back up everything. But your most valuable valuables are your financial records.
So Don, is this what you're thinking here? Or do you want to put like your home over on the second
the
drive?
home is in with the, it's in,
Data partition.
no, it isn't really. I mean, SDA1 would be a slash.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
SDA2 would be another slash. It'd be a slash. SDA3 would be a slash.
For a different
SDA5
OS.
for a different OS, right?
Ah, okay.
Each one of them are different. And each one has their own home file in it.
Okay.
And then I take my data file and I link that to each one of those.
Okay, I got you.
So that if I change things on one distribution, it's changed for all of them.
Okay.
Well, isn't that just a question of mounting it and home dash, whatever?
No, well, it mounts when you
Yeah, each of them mount.
put it in.
So what he did is he brought up a good point, which I don't know if you really ever tried this before, is that you can, in the installer and elsewhere, is you can actually say, I want this partition here to be /home
Right.
/Don.
I could do that, but I want it to be data.
Okay, or data.
I want it to be data, and then I just link it back to my home file, which is in SDA1. It just links.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I found that out too as a young system administrator, that overlapping mount points caused me problems when drives went stale and you couldn't unmount the mount point because the intervening mount point was bad and you couldn't get to the sub mount point. And so I only believe in symbolic links.
And excellent point. This exists for very specific uses, and that's maybe only 2% of the time. You probably don't want to go deep like that. But I just wanted to bring that up to try to help.
Well, I don't have everything in the home position, in the home partition, in the data.
Right.
Because there's some things that are different for each one of the different things. But the only dot files that I bring over are dot Mozilla and dot Firebird or whatever it is.
Yeah,
Thunderbird. Those kind of things, yeah. Firebird. That's all. But then I have all of the folders. They're all linked.
Okay.
And in that is my wife's pictures.
You know you can burn those to DVDs because their pictures are never going to change.
She wants them.
Well, no, stagnant data. Data that should not be changed.
Yes.
Unless you're photoshopping your wife doing things.
Well, you can add to it
Okay.
if she wants to. I don't have any photos. I don't have any.
You don't have any photos of yourself?
Well, I have photos of my airplanes.
Okay.
But that's an interesting question. If you have, we're talking about data management, if you have photos and you're doing backups every night, right? You might want to put your photos in a separate partition and then only do incrementals. Because like you said, the photos aren't going to change.
By using this, what is it?
Parsing.
Yeah, that does it automatically. It only puts up there the things that are changed.
Further on his point, there's several types of data, and pictures are something that you really, you pull them off your camera or wherever, and they kind of never change size unless you go in and edit them. And even when you edit them, you want to keep that original. You know, maybe it's a RAW from a camera, and you don't want to ever delete that or mess with that. You copy it, you edit it, and everything. And so this is a point where it's like, you know, put it on a DVD, put it on something, even put it on a NAS and stick it somewhere.
It's on these.
Yeah. Carry your backups with you. So I'm installing Linux Mint Debian Edition right now, just for giggles, to chew up some time because I was talking too fast.
That's okay. We want pizza at 8:30.
Huh?
Yeah. We want pizza at 8:30.
It's in 5 minutes.
6 minutes.
That means he's out of time.
Huh?
That means he's out of time.
No, we've got time. I mean, I think that's some good questions, and I think a lot of that impact is that as we grow older, I guess I'm not the youngest person in the room. Yes. Thank you very much, by the way.
Hey,
so,
listen, I was young once, but I can still be immature. I want you to remember that, okay?
Growing old is required, growing up is optional.
But as we all grow older, we're going to keep our digital hoard, our pictures, our movies, our old MPEG clips that were funny at one point in time. You know, we're going to keep this digital archive. And, you know, how do you back it up? Do you back it up on a DVD, put it on a shelf where it's not easily and fastly accessible? Or do you leave it on your data drive so you can go click on it real quick and get a laugh?
Or do you do both because you don't know how long the DVD is going to last?
Actually, yeah, I did some work on that particular topic where what happened here? Oh, it went to sleep. I did a project where they needed to keep archives of a particular type of record. And they needed to keep it for a really, really long time. And the time that they wanted to keep it, and this is a particular government organization, the FDA, and they wanted to keep this for such a long time that I had to point out that in 20 years, that video format's not going to be readable.
Well, we'll always have data.
Actually, we still do.
Yeah.
Data's awesome.
Yeah.
So that's why you put 3 players in the vault, and
That is the kind of thing, is that the government doesn't always think that way. Sometimes they'll buy 6 of something, stick it in the vault, and they'll be happy with it. Sometimes they won't.
They're gonna buy 20 of them, but they're gonna put it in that warehouse.
The same warehouse that's going to get a flood, yeah.
The one down on Broadway?
Yeah.
Yes.
question. No, question.
Sure.
Now, did you do a study on how long the actual DVD media is going to last?
Well, it wasn't so much media. What we actually were dealing with is a period of time that was so long.
That is
We were
really neat.
concerned about the codecs not existing anymore.
Well, I've done some reading now, they said that, to mass-produce CD-ROMs and DVD-ROMs,
Mhm.
the coatings they put on it and so forth, they say that they break down pretty quick.
Yeah, I've seen 5 years on cheap ones. And I've seen people talk about a bacteria in Albania or somewhere that would eat the plastics they were using on a particular manufacturer. The plastic on a CD was getting eaten by bacteria.
They were saying that way back in the early days that CDs were getting mold growth or something.
Oh, but back 25 years ago, you'd actually have a laser disc, and you actually burned it with a laser, and it was made out of silver. And it was supposed to be good for hundreds of years.
Have you played one of yours recently?
Silver
No.
oxidized.
Got them on the show. So they're playing.
Well, testing them, they should have still playing.
But yeah, so anyway, back on your personal archives and stuff, this project taught me that we consider these things timeless, but there's going to be a time when we can't play an MPEG-1 anymore. You're sitting on your system and you're like, why won't this play? And it's like they depreciated MPEG-1 because it was too old.
Well, it's not even your MPEG ones. There's some DOS games that I thought were pretty cool.
Right,
You can't find a platform to play them on anymore.
Right, but what I'm talking about is let's just let's just say that you're storing all of your images. You're storing your images in JPEG and a particular codec. And you get to this point in time where they're only supporting an advanced version of JPEG and no longer the original. Microsoft did this wonderfully. I think it was Office 2002 or 2003, whatever it was. It would not allow you to open Office 97 documents or something.
Yeah. So you had to download Open Office to open them.
Right, and it was a situation where I'm like, why don't you support the versions? So yeah, that's a situation where whether it's your personal photos and videos or your games, how do you keep those going forever? You can virtualize machines. You can virtualize machines on machines that are virtualizing your machine in the machine.
The game I'm thinking of is called Tim, the Incredible Machine.
Okay.
The problem is that when you run it on fast hardware, it runs so fast you can't play it.
Correct. But with the beauty of
So the virtualization ain't the right answer.
actually it is, because you can actually set most virtualization environments and you can alter how the CPU performs.
Oh, okay.
But it does. It's a little bit of knowledge that you have to apply. Oh, what did I do here? Okay, Linux Mint here. I have a problem with Linux Mint, and we're going to see it.
On backup, actually, I already saw a copy in a different city too.
Yeah.
Well,
Is St. Charles a different city from St. Louis?
No.
it's very similar. So
Same fault.
So most of the regulations in most
Same flood.
organizations are 50-mile or some mileage separation or kilometer separation. So it doesn't always have to be that it's in a different city. Sometimes it can be that it's in a really different state or country just because it's cheap. So if you could back your data up to Canada for half the cost you can in California, sometimes just going to an entire different country might be the best idea.
Or say data across the
Looking for
border,
login.
subject to search
Huh?
by the NSA.
Just looking
and
for a
they can't.
login.
But look at it render.
That's not what it's supposed to be?
Just click on it.
Huh? Oh no, it's stuck during the default install.
Really?
It has a 4-second lag because this is virtualization without a GPU. It's looking for a GPU. Come on, go up there.
There you go.
Yeah, it's about a 3 or 4 second lag. But it's only on the login screen as soon as you're logged in.
There is a delay, you're right.
Shutdown system.
I don't think it shuts down automatically either.
Hmm? Details, change it. So now it'll be awesome and fast. Ta-da! So, there we go. Configuration. There we go. So Linux Mint is an offshoot of Debian, and it, hey, we even got the Debian logo down here just for nice sake, and it's meant to make it really easy for the home desktop user. It's still, I think it creates some confusion for some users. So for example, my mother's been using Debian on the desktop for a long time. And one of the things I do is I just make sure that she has a web browser, and I teach her how to use online document editing and stuff like that, so she understands that she can go anywhere and use a web browser and do the same thing. So when it comes to Mint, for example, this can kind of get overwhelming for some new users that are coming from a different environment or the first time they're using a computer. And so this is the flip side of the coin of having Linux on the desktop according to how Linus wants it, and Linux on the desktop that's easy to use. So like I've got a Chromebook here with default Chrome OS, and I got one for my nephew with the exact same model, and he likes it because he doesn't have to really even worry about what all is going on. It's that he has a very easy to use, quick system to do everything he wants. But yeah, having the terminal and package manager and all this stuff by default here, this is actually concerning for most users, and that's one of the reasons I'm I was confused about why this was meant for the average Joe user. So are there any other questions or comments, or is everybody just jonesing for pizza?
Oh, is it, you got new version of Firefox on there?
It's probably old.
I was wondering how new it was.
It's got updates.
Yeah, it's not the newest one.
Hold on. No, they just could have a stupid skin on it. 27 with 31 or 32 right now.
31 or 32. Yeah.
I just installed 13.1 today, and there's no menu bar. You got you know, icon on the right hand corner.
Hot dogs or hamburgers, yeah.
Yeah, but there's no help about it. You can't tell what version it is.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Let me see here.
13 on mine.
You probably go
Take a
to
look.
about colon Mozilla maybe.
Well, I mean, yeah, you could do it in the command line, but there's no help about.
What's the version on this one? That's ISO.
There it is.
Well, this is going to be different.
Yeah.
This
See, there's no
is-
help about. Oh, there it is. Okay, I missed that.
This is
You can turn it
31.
on
Yeah,
so-
31.
by default.
Yeah, but it's got the little menu icon up there instead of the menu bar. on
Yeah, some people call them the hot dogs or the hamburger. I think it's
Oh,
hilarious.
yes.
Click on the hamburger. What hamburger? I don't see a hamburger. I don't know what this pug is all about here. What is that all
It's
about?
a pug game.
Just sound stuff.
That's good.
Oh.
I like it.
Yeah, that's yeah. Disturbing.
$31.
No, this is Sid. I've got some things that are too new. Okay. Let's see, what other crazy questions does anyone have? One of the funniest things is back to that Docker topic. Is that view? So one of the funny things in Debian is that they literally have a Docker that predates Docker.
Yeah.
And so they actually called it docker.io, which I thought was cute. So they used the Docker's website domain as the name of the package.
Yeah, that was still vertlib or something like that.
Hmm? Docker?
Docker was originally called vertlib.
No, libvirt is something I use a lot of.
Okay. There's a company that created it. And
.cloud was their original name. Any other fun questions and comments before we start shutting down and tear out of here? Yes, no, maybe?
I have some for Craig if he's for it.
Uh-oh. Okay.
One word, Ruby. I know you've probably been talking about it. I've been actually came here, so you rang me for about 15 minutes about Ruby meetup on Monday, the group that you're with, and people down there, and why you're interested in Ruby a lot for the past 8 months, 2 months.
Years?
Yeah.
Well,
Using it
so much
since 2005.
I mean, you just start posting information on some of the meetups and things, like last winter or one.
I've been going to that meetup since about 2006.
Really? Okay, you just
yeah.
close to the surface.
There's
Some of the other people I'm familiar with around the area or
Okay. I'm gonna
Uh, presentations about it.
I started. I've given presentations here on it.
yeah.
So so I started using it due to Slashdot. Had an article in like 2005 on Ruby on Rails. So I learned that and just really love it. It just thinks the way I think. It's principle of least surprise. So I like it a lot. It has its warts that I don't like, but of all the things I tried, it's the best.
You doing Go yet? Come on.
No, actually, I haven't tried anything new for a long time, sadly. I did do a lot of Python a year or so ago, which is okay. I now hate PHP because PHP. Come to some meeting. The downtown is not.
Not for me, that's way beyond that. I was interested because it seemed energetic about it, and I wondered why.
It's not that hard language to learn. It's a bit of a hard language to master. Which is probably true of most languages.
Well, Ruby has a unique problem in that the pace is so fast that, you know, if you stop for 6 months, you can't start again without starting over.
Well, that's more Rails than Ruby.
Okay.
I think the major problem with Ruby that I've dealt with is from a system administration point of view, and it's not the fault of Ruby. It's the situation where an application is written against a certain set of gems, and you go to do your system updates, and for some reason, a version of Ruby gets updated, and those gems that were used for Ruby either no longer function or whatever. So from a system administrator point of view, it's almost like application pinning. You want to pin that server to this version and never upgrade out of it.
So that's where Docker would be helpful.
And that's kind of where Docker is the magical wand saying, hey, here's this library stack, and here's this application, and maybe someday I'm going to update this library stack, and then the application's okay, and then that way I can trade them in and out.
So the main solution to that is to bundle all your gems, which are the libraries in Ruby, with your applications. That has a downside, though, that if, let's say, OpenSSL has a hole in it, and you're pointing at the old SSL library, you have to update all your applications. So that's the potential downside, but typically Rails apps are going to be sort of DevOps types of people, then you're probably just going to rebuild your server. Well, hopefully you're far enough along the DevOps path that you're just going to play some new servers with the updated stuff, the updated packages, the updated application. The other thing, so I talked to, a couple months back, I got to interview Dave Thomas, who wrote the programmers. He owns Pragmatic Bookshelf. He was also the author of the first English book on Ruby, and a big proponent in the Agile Manifesto, the Agile Manifesto. And so I asked him, I'm like, how did it come to be that, and is it true that Ruby and Agile kind of go hand in hand? Why are all the Rubyists seem to be very Agile oriented? And he said mainly because it was sort of the same group of people involved in both. So that's also how I learned Agile methodology. So I like that sort of community aspect, but sort of is always to do the right thing mentality. PHP is like just get it done. Or do the wrong thing. To me, it's the do the wrong thing.
Have you used the 6 yet? Or?
No, I gave up after about 5.
It did get better. It's not perfect, but it did get better.
No,
The main thrust of what they're working on, web apps for enterprise?
Yes.
In-house, pretty much product plans?
Right now, in-house, yeah. The last couple, I guess, have been in-house.
You going up against things like Java, like that? Are you going for something like that, or is this people who are, newer companies not established, not enterprise leasing, pretty much all Java?
Just open up an article, I haven't read it yet, why startups are all big on Ruby on Rails. So even though Rails has been around for 10 years now, I've been using it for, I guess, 7 or 8.
So change.
It's still the sort of the. So the thing about Rails is it sort of builds in all the things you need to get started really quickly, which is great. If you have an app that just kind of